I think we're good.
Really?
I think it's live.
Live?
It says live, yeah.
All right, word. Welcome to Fans with Attitude, live talk show by fans, for fans. Um, you seen First Take Undisputed. Well, this is a show full of sports takes, except, the fans can participate through the live chat. Let us know if you want us to discuss anything next week. But for now, we're going to come into you. My name is Daniel. Buddy on my other screen his name is Drew.
Sup?
Just a couple of college kids, just doing what we love. So we're gonna start with the NFL offseason. Obviously, the New England Patriots won the Super Bowl.
Yes, sir.
So it was kind of a boring Super Bowl. We don't really have much to talk about,
Yeah.
other than the fact that Bill Belichick is probably the greatest defensive mind I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But we're gonna start big name free agents.
All right, let's start off with, I know he's not technically a free agent, it's more of a trade, but Antonio Brown. I know you're a Packers fan. You have high hopes for them to make it happen. So tell me, if you're the GM, what are you doing to make Antonio Brown suit up for the Green Bay Packers next year?
So if I'm going off of, I've seen multiple reports where Antonio Brown is, they want that's 15. They want mid-round picks for Antonio Brown. Packers have 2 fourth-round picks. I say we give them a third-round pick, fourth-round pick, and maybe a third or fourth round next year to help bolster some depth, and give them help for the future. That way we can get them there, and we still keep our 2 first-round picks. I think that's the best scenario for the Packers. That way we can fill needs at tight end and maybe an edge rusher if we don't sign any of the top guys like Frank Clark, D Ford, or even DeMarcus Lawrence if they hit the market. But that's my scenario for Antonio Brown.
All right. Well, I'm not even going to give you one if I was a Patriots GM because they already told us it's not happening. Just like all the other AFC North teams, Bengals, Browns, Ravens, same boat. They're not willing to send Antonio Brown there, rightfully so. That would kind of shoot themselves in the foot trying to get back in the playoffs, compete for a Super Bowl. I've been seeing a lot of reports that 49ers have a lot of interest in him. He has a lot of interest in them, and I think that they have the right draft picks and cap to make it work out with him. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, it'll be interesting to see how he comes off that ACL injury, but I think they can make something happen there in San Fran. They're a couple pieces away from being a team that can compete in that division. Obviously, Rams are still a really good team. Seahawks as well. So it'll be interesting to see if Antonio Brown going to the 49ers can make a difference for them.
But now we're going to hit real free agent, probably the number one guy that's considered as a free agent. Le'Veon Bell held out all year. I mean, personally, I don't mind the decision to sit out. Obviously, you need to get paid, do what you need to do for your body. And, where do you think he's going to go? I'll ask you first.
All right. I've been saying it ever since he sat out all year. He needs a team where he's going to be the number one guy. And I think there's no better place, and I hate to say this, than the New York Jets. I think that they have a lot of cap room this offseason. They're in desperate need of like a number one option on offense, especially at running back. And I mean, if you put him next to Sam Darnold, Robbie Anderson, I'm trying to think who else they have. Quincy Enunwa, exactly. I just think that offense could be enough to get them at least, obviously, while Tom Brady and Belichick are there, I don't think anyone's dethroning the Patriots from the AFC East. But it could be enough to get them back in the playoffs and at least compete in the wild card round and see if they can move on from there. Obviously, they'd have a bright future. Darnold's young. Bell is still in his prime, so that'd be interesting to see. What about you?
I like the idea of the Jets. Obviously, I would say everybody should go to the Packers, but I think an interesting fit that I've seen around is the Texans. I think they have enough cap space to sign him, and that way they don't have, Lamar Miller's getting up there. He's about 30. Deontay Foreman hasn't really come into his own as that premier guy they thought he could be out of Texas. And rightfully, I mean, he hasn't, he's been injured and whatnot. Alfred Blue has been in the league for 6 years, but he's like 48.
But it feels like 14, yeah.
Yeah, he's been in the league a long time. So I think if they sign Le'Veon, they give Deshaun Watson an extra playmaker, especially because their offensive line isn't that good. If he has that fail-safe that, that Tom Brady passed the 5 yards to the side instead of 5 yards down the field,
yeah.
Instead of trying to hit Hopkins and, whatnot, I think that could be a really interesting fit. And that way they don't have to look for more playmakers, big-time playmakers in the draft. And that way they can focus on bolstering the offensive line and getting some more depth rather than trying to have an impact player.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And now, I mean, obviously, I would say, in my opinion, the number one spot of free agents, like, that's going to have a lot of people is going to be the receiver. I think there's so many receivers this year. You got Cole Beasley, Golden Tate, Adam Humphries. I know, like, there's a ton more. Philip Dorsett, Chris Hogan, off the Patriots at least.
Randall Cobb too.
Randall Cobb, yeah, exactly. I mean, I just feel like there's so many teams are in desperate need of like a 1 or 2 option at receiver, and I think this is gonna be the year where those teams like finally have an option to choose from.
Yeah, teams like the Ravens who can pick those kind of guys up. But also, kind of speaking of the Ravens, they had the number one defense, and that's also a big part of this free agency is these pass rushers. I mean, they're losing Terrell Suggs, Zadarius Smith, C.J. Mosley's a middle linebacker, but if they don't re-sign 2 of those guys, I mean, Terrell Suggs is 36, but he can still get to rush the passer. I mean, D. Ford, Frank Clark, the DeMarcus Lawrence, like those are just some of the top guys. And if they don't get re-signed by their teams, they can make an impact anywhere. D. Ford finally came into his own, had 14 sacks this year for the Chiefs.
And thank God he went offsides.
Frank Clark kind of came into his own too. He led the Seahawks in sacks. DeMarcus Lawrence, he's 25. I want to say he racked up like 14 sacks too. I mean, if these guys don't get, held on to by their teams, they can join a team like the Packers or the Patriots. Trey Flowers,
exactly.
If they don't get re-signed, they can join another team and make an immediate impact and bolster their team, to possibly the Super Bowl, because sometimes all these teams need is just a one step up on the defense.
For sure. All right, so that's what we're going to leave it at with free agents. Obviously, once that actual free agency begins, we'll talk more about it. But now we're going to move into the draft. Just first round talk for now. Not going to get too crazy going with all 7. So who are your favorite players going into this draft, and where do you think they'll end up?
Favorite player, I mean, obviously I like Kyler Murray. He's just, I think he's awesome. I think Heisman players, kind of like how Baker Mayfield was last year, people were like, he won't be that good. Well, he lost to Saquon Barkley in the Rookie of the Year. Obviously a very good first-round choice. So I think the Heisman winner always has to be up there. I do like Ed Oliver. I think he took a step back this year at Houston because he was injured, and, he was saving himself because Houston wasn't very good this year. But he's explosive. Dexter Lawrence, played against high school, man. I think that'll be interesting to see where he goes. And I'll give you 2 more. DK Metcalf. I'm interested to see where he goes because he looks like a Hulk.
I mean, he's literally like, I don't even know how to describe his position. He's not a receiver. He doesn't even look like a receiver or a tight end. He's like an offensive lineman with like insane speed.
He's bigger, almost. He's not taller, but he's bigger than Calvin Johnson. I looked at his measurements. It was 6'4", like 230. For a receiver, that's ridiculous. So I think it'd be interesting to see where I saw him going, like Oakland, somewhere to replace Amari Cooper, which would be interesting. But Oakland has a lot of holes to fill,
for sure.
And I'm interested to see Nick Bosa. I think he's overrated. People are like, he's the best pass rusher in the thing. The guy played 2 years of college football.
I was going to say, wasn't he another one of those guys he skipped this whole year, right? Or like,
yeah,
most of it.
He got an injury to his core and had surgery, and then said he took a step back from Ohio State and said, I'm just going to focus on going to the draft. And because his last name's Bosa, it's like, oh, Big Bear, Little Bear. He's got to be a top guy.
Yeah, for sure. And now I totally agree with you. I think Kyler Murray just based on his size alone, is being very underrated. A lot of people are saying that these teams like the Jaguars, the Giants should be looking more like at Dwayne Haskins and Daniel Jones from Duke, and I don't know how I feel about that. I don't think like I can't think of any Ohio State quarterbacks that have ever panned out in the NFL very well.
I agree.
They always end up switching positions or just fading out within a couple of years, and I think Kyler Murray. I mean, it's hard not to compare him to Russell Wilson. He put up insane numbers, not just on like the run, but his pocket passing. If you go look at that, was pretty sure he was number one ranked in college football passing from the pocket, which for a guy that likes to run around, you wouldn't really expect that from him. So I think he definitely should be the highest rated quarterback. I just don't know if teams are gonna give him the benefit of the doubt based on his size. I also like the tight ends out of Iowa. I've been talking about that a lot. Um, Noah Fant and T.J. Hawkinson. I think they both are going to be number one options on whatever team they get drafted to. Obviously, it would be great if the Patriots picked one of them up with Gronk, unsure of his future, rightfully so. He's been injured numerous times throughout these. I mean, it feels like forever, but he's really only been there like 8 years, which, I mean, it's crazy to think about all that he's accomplished. But I think either of those guys could be really good. And like you said, I think Dexter Lawrence, another guy that because of what happened in the with the, I believe he failed a drug test or something like that, wasn't allowed to play in either of his playoff games. I think he's going to be one of those guys that falls late round based on all that speculation, but he's going to end up being a very good defensive player in this league. I mean, we saw up close and personal, and this was, 4 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
The way, not just his size, but his athleticism for his position. And I mean, he's only gotten bigger ever since. And I mean, I think he can do it all in the pass game, in the run game. I think he can stop any of it, get to the quarterback. I think he's going to be like the hidden gem of the first round just because of the things that are like surrounding him going into it.
Yeah. So I know Patriots fan, just won a Super Bowl, 6 rings with Tom Brady. But who do you think is going to the Super Bowl with no free agents signing? Say you sign nobody, you draft a bunch of bums.
All right. So just looking at the league the way it is now, not even considering free agent signings, anything like that. I'm gonna give you I'm gonna give you more like a AFC Championship, NFC Championship scenario because I feel like it's a little tough to determine those two teams just right off the bat. I definitely think the Patriots will be back in the AFC Championship. Like I said, when it's Brady and Belichick there, you really can't doubt anything that they do. I mean, they went 11-5 this year. Everyone was talking, oh, this could be the end of the dynasty. They don't look the same, and they go and they win the Super Bowl. I mean, you just can't doubt it anymore. And then, I mean, honestly, I think we're going to have a repeat with the AFC. I think it's going to be Pats versus Chiefs. I think Mahomes is insanely talented for his age. I've never seen anything like this before. They just got to fix that defense. Because, I mean, he can put up like 50-something a game if he needs to. It's crazy the way he can command that offense. And Damian Williams, I mean, everyone was so worried when Kareem Hunt was, kicked off the team, kicked out of the league for his yeah, I know. Nice choice of words there. I just thought about that. Removed from the team and removed from the league for his domestic scandals and whatnot. But Damian Williams, he really showed out for them. He really, I didn't really know much about him going into it when he started to be the primary running back, and he put up some big numbers, especially the AFC Championship. I believe he had 3 touchdowns of his own.
Second half.
In the second half, yeah, exactly. I mean, he can do it in the passing game, the run game. He's very talented, and I just think they've got all the offense they need. It's just that's going to come down to the defense, and then the AFC. I mean, that's a wild card for me. I feel like the NFC is way more stacked than the AFC when it comes down to like who can make the Super Bowl. I want to say the Saints. I feel like they're gonna I feel like they're gonna be really jacked up about what happened last year. With the controversial or non-pass interference call rather. So I think they know Drew Brees is getting, towards the end of his career. This is gonna be these next couple of years gonna be the last chances that they have to win one. I think the Saints will be in the NFC Championship game. And weird. I know you're gonna hate me for this one.
Oh no.
I really think the Bears could be in the NFC Championship game. I just think that defense, as it is right now, is insanely talented and young. And I mean, Trubisky's the question mark in my opinion because they've got the skill position players. They've got a decent tight end with Trey Burton. It's all a matter of how Trubisky progresses. He needs to be a more consistent starting quarterback in the NFL. But I think if he can do that, then we're gonna have Pats versus Chiefs, and then Bears versus Saints. And honestly, either of those teams could win the Super Bowl. What do you got?
I could see the Bears, but they've got a couple issues for me that I don't see them getting past the divisional round. I think the Rams are going to be back in the NFC Championship. I just think McVay is going to come back with fire. Goff's going to have a probably similar year. Todd Gurley's not going to get beat out by bowling ball C.J. Anderson. I mean, Aaron Donald's the best defense player in the league, so they just got to stir up their linebacking core. I would probably get another corner, but I think they can make it back there right now. I think they're probably the best team in the NFL, even though they didn't win. And then another NFC team. I hate myself for saying this, but if the Cowboys, if they keep everybody and they have a good draft, and Dak Prescott plays well, they could probably make it to the NFC Championship. And it pains me to say it because I dislike the Cowboys with such passion, but I think that's just kind of the way that he's going to go. AFC, again, it pains me to say it, but I think you're right. Nobody can stop Mahomes. No. He's Brett Favre reincarnated, but it's so much fun to watch. Tyreek Hill's he's too fast for anybody to guard. Damian Williams takes a step. They're going back, especially if they sign guys and whatnot. I also saw it interesting, kind of off point going back. I saw a trade that said Antonio Brown could go to the Chiefs. That would be wild.
I don't even want to think about that.
Would never happen. I don't think Pittsburgh would give it to them. But
yeah,
that's fun thought. But yeah, I'd love to see Chiefs Rams because of that Monday Night Football game. That game was so good.
For sure.
So that's what I got again. And I think the Jaguars have a shot if they get another receiver, get Blake Bortles the heck out of there.
I've been saying this for 4 years now. Even when they made the AFC Championship, this dude is just terrible.
Terrible. Just terrible.
Yeah, it pains me to watch him.
But now to more football, the AAF.
Yes, the Alliance.
2 weeks in. What are your thoughts?
Dude, I think this league, I see, I've seen two different takes on it. I've seen people saying they think it's going to compete with the NFL, and then my take more so is that it's going to be like a minor league for it, which I think is definitely necessary with how, obviously the talent isn't, it's not as developed. It's not there yet. But then again, you really think about it, these kids only had, or I guess not kids, most of them are former NFL players trying to get back in. They only had a month to prepare with their team to get into the season. But I just think that this league has a lot of potential to be a minor league for the NFL, especially if the NFL decides hey, it's getting a lot of ratings. We should probably purchase it, which I think is their best move. Because it helps a lot of these kids that get drafted out of college and then either get hurt or get sent to the practice squad and don't even have a chance to prove themselves. They go to AAF affiliated team if the NFL purchases them, and they can kind of really prove their worth on even playing field with similar level of talent. And work their way back up. I mean, I'm loving it so far. The intensity of which they play. I definitely think the talent was a lot better week 2 than it was week 1. But again, it was the first week ever of this league. You got to expect you know, little nerves in everyone playing. It's just cool. I mean, a name like Trent Richardson, all you ever think is bust, like trash from the Colts and the Browns, and now you're seeing him like he's the premier guy in the Birmingham Iron. I mean, it's just like cool how like these new opportunities are coming up for these players to really prove themselves and try to get back in the NFL. So
Yeah,
that's my personal thoughts on the AAF so far.
I like the idea of the NFL purchasing it. I think it's there's way too many good football players out there to just not have enough spots for them. There's so many baseball players. There's minor league soccer teams, minor league hockey. The only minor league isn't lacrosse, but unfortunately, it's not a big enough sport.
Sadly,
So,
yeah.
if they could develop that, I mean, it'd be really cool if you could compare it to the NFL. But I don't think it's going to get to that level. I think it's going to take that back seat, especially, NFL's already got the big market teams. So, putting teams in like Birmingham, and then you get one in maybe South Carolina, put one in Iowa or something, put them where, especially college football towns, put them around there. People will go and flock to watch those games because people love football. And I love hard hitting football. So when I saw that hit and the quarterback got his head knocked off, I was all for it.
I mean, it still amazes me that, I mean, you saw in the AFC Championship game, like, Brady can get hit right here, and they're calling pass interference because they're just that scared of, or sorry, not pass interference, roughing the passer, because they're that scared of their, franchise quarterbacks, being seriously hurt. And you saw that hit, like you just said, in the AAF. I mean, that guy literally lost his helmet off that hit. A clean hit, too. Like, I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
saying there was anything dirty about that hit, but I mean, he literally like his helmet went flying off, and they let it go. I mean, I can see my dog in the background. Sorry, everyone.
oh,
um,
she's cute.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's just crazy that there's such a difference in play, and honestly, it's working out for them. They really brought in a lot of ratings that first week, and I think the same for week 2, and I think it'll continue to do that as the league keeps progressing.
Yeah. So now we're gonna take a step back from football. We're gonna look at the MLB a little bit. Not a huge baseball guy, but I know a little bit. But I know you pay a little more attention to baseball.
Yeah.
So which teams do you think look good heading into 2019?
All right. So, I mean, as with any sport, I don't think you can ever take like the championship team and discredit them and try to be like, oh, they're not gonna be able to sustain this. I think the Red Sox. I mean, I'm not even saying this because I'm a Boston guy or whatever, but I think the Red Sox have done they've been very smart about their free agency. They haven't been, trading people away or anything like that. They've kind of just kept the same core group of guys that, literally broke a franchise record for wins in a season. And I think they're going to go back out there and keep playing for each other. And I think they'll be another team to look out for, possibly to repeat. But I also think, and I hate to say this, the Yankees, I think, I think last year was a very much a chemistry development year. Giancarlo Stanton is not going to strike out that many times. And I think they improved their pitching when they signed James Paxton. That was a good signing for them. I just think their pitching and their hitting is going to come together. I think for them, it's solidifying the catcher spot. I don't think Gary Sanchez is the answer. I think he can hit like a DH, but he's not their answer for like a true defensive catcher. So I think they'll figure that out about mid-season, probably pick up someone for cheap who can do it better. Also, I think the Phillies, I think they're a team to watch out for. They've made a lot of big moves, and they already had. I mean, they had Reese Hoskins, and they had a couple of guys last year who were playing really well. They just didn't really have it all together. They were very young. I think they are going to be a team to look out for in the National League, and those would be my teams so far. Obviously, Astros, they're a team that's solid every year. It seems like. I'm forgetting the Mets, National League. If we want two teams there, Phillies and Mets are going to be I think they're definitely the two teams to look out for. Mets made another team that made a lot of big signings in free agency. They kept their pitching, which is one of the best in the league. I mean, can't say enough about that. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much where I stand with baseball right now. What about you?
Go Brewers. Actually, go San Diego Padres. They're my pick to win it all. No, not a chance at all. But that kind of leads into the next point.
Yeah.
Manny Machado, your career's over, buddy. Like
you heard it here first. You heard it here first.
Manny Machado is never making the playoffs again. 10, I mean, good for you. Chase the bag, secure the bag. I don't care. I personally would want more rings. I would have probably stayed with the Dodgers. I think they're a good team. I don't know if they'll go back because they did trade away a couple guys like Yasa Puig. I love watching that guy. He's so much fun.
He's funny to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think if the Brewers, if they get their pitching right, they're a team to watch. And again, I mean, Red Sox and Yankees, you guys have that whole conference freaking on lock. So
yeah,
I think that's probably my go is probably the Brewers, just because that's my team.
Mm-hmm.
What about another big name free agent, Bryce Harper?
Oh.
Where do you think he's going to go?
You see, I thought I had it all figured out. I thought it was definitely just going to come down to either he'd re-sign with the Nationals or sign with the Phillies. But with this Machado deal, I mean, this put a lot of fear into a lot of MLB general managers, in my opinion, because I understand the league is like unlimited with the money. There's no cap or whatever, so you can sign guys to these, astronomical deals like Machado just got. But the problem is, I think Machado compared to a Bryce Harper, a Mike Trout, a Mookie Betts, I don't think he compares to them. I don't think he's on that level of talent, clutch, coming up when it matters most and playing, at a high level consistently throughout the season, and postseason. That's most important in my eyes. And the fact that he just signed 10 years, $300 million. And I mean, yes, there's a 5-year opt out on his end. So basically, the Padres just locked themselves into this. Like, they just committed their entire franchise to Manny Machado. Because if he wants to stay and keep making that money, because I don't see why he wouldn't, they now are paying him 10 years, $300 million. So now you got Bryce Harper, who is definitely now going to command more than that, in my opinion. I don't see. Originally, I think he said he wanted like 350, and teams were like, no, like that's way too much. And now Machado just proved, like, you know what? Apparently, it's not. So it's really going to come down to who wants to commit pretty much their entire franchise to one dude and hope he can, carry them into the postseason and win them the World Series. And I just don't know if the Nationals are with that anymore. They've had him for, I don't know, it feels like 6-7 years now. I can't even think of the exact number, but he started out, I want to say he peaked in like 2015. He was at an all-time high there, and then like his numbers are slowly starting to dwindle already, and he's still in his prime. So I just I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see who's willing to commit to him, realize he's still pretty young for a baseball player, and probably end up having to pay him more than Machado just got. So I honestly can't think of a team right off the top of my head, but it'll be interesting to watch.
I think the team that's going to get Bryce Harper is the team that not necessarily offers him $300 million, but the team that offers him more than $30 million a year. I think if he'll sign a deal maybe 6-7 years and get paid $35 million a year. I think that's probably more in his mindset because baseball player, he's one of the best in the game, got to secure the bag. But he also, I think, is a guy that's driven by pride, and he wants to leave a legacy rather than Machado. We saw him in the World Series. He freaking formed a K after he struck out to lose the World Series. So, and then, Machado, secure the bag, but I think Bryce Harper might not peak $300 million, but he'll get more per year. I think that's what it's going to end up being.
I'd say rightfully so. I think, even if he doesn't get the bigger, total number, I think he definitely deserves more per year. on
Yeah.
average. All right, so this takes us. I mean, we'll leave that there because obviously, at this point, God knows what's going to happen with that situation.
Oh yeah.
So a question I feel like everyone seems to ask, every offseason, is should the Major League Baseball should they shorten their season? As it stands right now, it's 162 games. Um, and it lasts from April till October. That's basically the whole year if you really think about it. Um, and obviously, your traditional fans are gonna be like, it's been that way for hundreds of years. Why change it now? There's no point. Um, but I just feel like with the way other teams are trying to preserve their their stars with new rules and stuff, I feel like it's something that's worth talking about. So I want to know your opinion first. Like, should they shorten it? Is there any other rules they should add to ensure player safety? I mean, I know it's not a contact sport, but people still, mess up their elbows and stuff like that through pitching. So I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
As a person who is kind of on the outside looking in at baseball, I know baseball players might get mad, or baseball, true diehards might get mad at me, but I think 162 games is absurd, because then you have guys playing back to backs, and you're not getting the same high quality of baseball that you would expect. The NBA playing 82 games is still a lot of games for those guys. So I think maybe you could drop it to 120. I think that way you're getting still enough games. It's not going to be like, oh well, we won 40 games, we won 42 games, and you make the playoffs. Like, it's still going to have enough margin for error, but it won't. Like, it'll help you preserve your guys and still get a high quality of baseball, rather than lots of games but crappy baseball.
I see where you're going with that, and I mean, I definitely think that the season, I think it needs to be shorter, but for different reasons. And like you, I'd say in that like 120 range rather than 100, 60s. But I think if you watch, like, I know, like you said, you don't watch as much baseball as I do, or most fans do. But if you watch some of these games, like, the Marlins and some of these really just consistently bad teams, like, they don't even sell tickets. And when you're having games 100, like, so 162 games, so it's what, 81 at home, if I'm doing math correctly. I don't even know anymore. And I mean, you're hardly selling, like the camera has to be zoomed in so much because they're trying to hide the fact that no one is there watching. And most of the times, like, you'll get a team like Tampa Bay where their home fans aren't even there because, Red Sox fans or other teams just have such a following that you got, like, it's now a Red Sox home game, something like that. And I just feel like with that many games a season and you're not selling enough tickets clearly, like, I feel like if you shorten the season, it will draw more fans in because it's like less chances to see them every year.
Decrease the supply, increase the demand.
Exactly. I still learned a little bit from economics classes. Rip. But yeah, I mean, and again with the player safety, I mean, you always see, like, you can't go 1 year without someone having to get Tommy John or something like that, and I mean that's a pretty serious procedure. And the fact that some of these guys are even able to, come back from it is insane. But you just we gotta be, or the MLB's got to do a better job protecting their top tier pitchers. Because honestly, like, if a team goes and puts some random guy out on the pitching mound, 99% of the time, you don't even have to watch the game. You know that other team's gonna tee off on them, and then it just becomes a circus of who's gonna pitch next. They got position players, throwing pitches. Like, it just turns into a joke. And I just think a shorter season could fix that.
So now we're gonna step back from baseball and go into, it's about to be March Madness, baby.
Yes.
Basketball, NBA, NCAA. We're gonna start, with the state of the NBA. Who's your front runner for MVP, and who's your biggest disappointment?
Team disappointment or player disappointment?
Player.
Okay. So first off, my front runner for MVP right now is definitely Paul George. I know that's gonna trigger some people because they're like, "Oh, well, James Harden's setting these like historical numbers. He's doing what Wilt Chamberlain, used to do these like 30-point games back to back." And I mean, yeah, it's very impressive, and they are winning a good amount of those games as well. But Paul George, the way he's been playing, and it's not like there's been a major injury on that team. Like it's not like Russell Westbrook's been out for a long time, if at all, even. And he's just really stepped up and owned up to the fact that that's his team now, in my opinion. And again, OKC fans out there might freak out on me because, like, oh, Russell's been there since he was drafted. But Paul George, when he went there last year, and everyone was like, oh, this is a 1 year thing, and then he's going to LA. He's dipping. He's going to play with LeBron and the Lakers, and he didn't. I mean, it took one, social event or whatever. Probably was drunk, but I'm not going to accuse him of that. And he was willing to recommit to Thunder, and it's really paying off for them. I mean, they're like what, third in the West, and they're
Something like
just
that.
they're dominating, and he's dominating. It's like he's also dropping like 27 plus a game. Russell Westbrook with these triple doubles. I mean, they're gonna be a team like they're a force to be reckoned with in the West because I mean they also have Steven Adams, who's I'd say he's a pretty underrated center. I don't
Oh
think
yeah.
people value his defense, his rebounding, the way he can just play inside like he's supposed to. He doesn't need to stretch the floor because Paul George and some of these other guys off the bench can do that for them. They've got a lot of young role players too. I mean, Schroeder's pretty young, and he's your backup point guard. I mean, he could be starter on just about any other NBA franchise, and he's your backup. Like, I think Paul George is really turning that Thunder team around, and I think they're definitely going to make the Western Conference Finals. I don't know about winning it because hard to bet against the Warriors. But I think Paul George is definitely the front runner for MVP, and then biggest disappointment. It's a good question. Honestly, this is gonna sound kind of crazy, and I'm not even trying to be a hater here, but and I know it's his first year, but this whole LeBron experiment in LA, it's just been really bad so far. I'm not personally saying that he's the biggest disappointment in terms of like he's the worst player in the NBA right now. I'm not crazy like that. Just I thought he was really going to be able to go in there and command some of this like young and like really talented people. You got Lonzo, you got Kuzma. Um, they're competing at a high level night in and night out. And I thought he was going to be able to kind of bring it all together and help them compete in the West. And I mean, they're like what 10th in the West right now, negative record. I just it's just interesting to see if they're going to be able to turn this around. And I don't think they will. I think there's a chance they miss the playoffs, and that right there alone, I think falls on LeBron. As much as I hate to say it, but when you're that high of a caliber player and you've got talent around you, like it's not like these Cavaliers teams that he's played on like last year and 2007. Those are teams he brought to the finals and were terrible. The talent around him was just a joke, and
Horrible.
he could bring them to the finals. I know that's the East, but there's teams in the West like the Kings who are all young guys, and they're out there competing. I think they're almost
They're ahead of them.
solidified a playoff spot, and the Lakers are struggling hard. And I think the blame goes to LeBron, honestly.
So I love the Paul George. Being a Paul George fan myself. I love that, but I think Giannis. I think that's he's been dominating the NBA. And again, people are going to say Harden. He's made his own case for MVP, so I'm not going to help him there. I think Giannis and what he's done with this Bucks team, his ability. He's got a little bit of a jump shot. He's hit a couple more. He's hitting more threes. He's hit more threes in a single game than Ben Simmons has taken his entire career. So I think if he continues to do what he's doing, he'll make his case for MVP. And I know you're going to be kind of mad, but I think you'll agree that Kyrie Irving is probably one of the bigger disappointments in the NBA this year, just simply based on the fact that he's supposed to be this leader, and that's the reason he went to Boston. And now he's got his chance. He's got the young guys. He's got a couple of vets with him, and they're just disappointing.
I
I thought,
agree. I mean,
mm,
he's putting all this blame on the media for breaking up locker rooms and all that, and that's direct quote from him. But it's as simple as keep your mouth shut. Like you don't have to be buying into all this. Like, oh, you're gonna go to New York next year and you're ruining this locker room and blah blah blah. You don't have to buy into all that. You can just say like no comment or something like that, and you're not gonna get fined for something like that.
yeah,
Marshawn Lynch is a great example of that. I'm only here so I don't get fined. Like,
you know
but
why I'm
Kyrie
here.
Irving's letting the media play him the way they want to, and that's their job. I mean, their job is to get stories out of these players, and they're doing exactly that.
Yeah,
And I agree that not from like a talent perspective, because I still think he's having a great year, like talent wise, but from the leadership perspective, he's definitely had a very shaky year and very questionable year.
yeah, that's more what I was alluding to. So you kind of touched on what's wrong with the Lakers. I mean, LeBron just, he's 32, right?
I think so, yeah.
And people expected him like to be able to carry these young guys. Like I feel like he kind of realized like this was going to take a little more time. Obviously, nobody expected them to miss the playoffs, but that groin injury to him definitely hindered them. But I think at the same time, that was better for them, kind of having him on the bench and letting the young guys figure out how to play by themselves. And I don't think Luke Walton's a bad coach. I think LeBron is kind of overshadowing him. Obviously, like I don't know what's
As
going on in the
usual.
locker room. I don't know what's going on with that, but outside looking at it again, it looks like LeBron kind of overshadows most of the coaches he plays with. I mean, come on, Ty Lue got stepped over by Allen Iverson. I'm not respecting that guy.
Yeah.
So I think LeBron kind of overshadowing Luke Walton is a big problem. And now, who do you think maybe 5 years down the road will be the best team in the NBA?
The best team or like just a collection of teams that could be up there? Because I think it's hard to predict that, like that number one team. All right, three. Okay. I think, and this is kind of outlandish because everyone's saying, oh, everyone wants to go to the Knicks. Like Kevin Durant, Kyrie, gonna go team up with Zion Williamson and take over New York. But I think the hotter commodity of those teams is Brooklyn. They have Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, can't think of something. Karis LeVert. I mean, they already got a young core that is just dominating.
D'Lo, baby. D'Lo.
Yeah, I'm forgetting him. He's probably the best of the four. I mean, D'Angelo Russell. That team is already like dominating. They're like fifth or sixth in the East right now, and
yeah,
they're that's a big. Brooklyn's a big market. Like they're a generally new franchise because they took over New Jersey, in 2013, I think. But I think that's one of those teams that just with the collection of young talent, and they're gonna have money because it's most of these guys are on rookie deals anyways. I think they realized they messed up when they they took the bait on that trade with the Celtics back in 2013. Taking Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett in, trying that win now mentality rather than building up with the people they had. That was a horrible idea, and it's skyrocketed the Celtics to a top tier team, obviously with their the draft picks they've gotten out of that, Tatum, Brown, for example. But I think the Nets will learn from that, and we'll get some big names out of free agency. I can't predict, obviously 5 years from now who's going to be a free agent, but I think that's a hot spot, and that has a bright future. And I think the Kings as well. I mean, same, similar situation. They've got young talent. They're buying into what that I can't remember who the coach is right now, and I hate to say that, but that coach is doing very well with them, and he has.
Nate Archibald, is it?
No, I don't think it's Nate Archibald.
Nate McMillan.
Yeah, exactly. That's the Pacers. I can't think of who it is, but he is coaching them at a high level. They're definitely playing way better than they should be right now. And I think De'Aaron Fox is only going to continue to develop. Buddy Hield, he's entering his prime right now. I mean, again, that's not as big of a market, Sacramento, but I just think that young core talent, and you get like one free agent. I mean, this isn't football. Basketball, you need one guy who can change the entire organization. So I think Nets and Kings are two teams to really keep an eye on these next couple of years.
Yeah, I think a team that if they play their cards right, 5 years from now they could be really good as the Hawks. I mean, John Collins is really good. Trae Young, he's got to get his shot more consistent, but he could be a Steph Curry type of player. What's Torian Prince? I mean, these guys aren't bad. They definitely aren't very good at all right now. But I definitely think that if they take the steps right, they can be a force to be reckoned with for 5 years down the road. Another team, 5 years down the road, I'm trying to think to the Western Conference. I mean, I think the Jazz, the Nuggets. Sorry.
Oof. Yeah.
I mean, Nikola Jokic is like 24. They got Will Barton, and a couple other good guys that just help contribute to that team. And they're such an underrated team, but they're built for the future. Again, if they get one big guy, shoot. The Nuggets went to freaking Western Conference Finals. That'd be pretty sweet this year, and I think that they can maintain that type of level of play, especially with Nikola Jokic being a big man who puts up more triple-doubles than anybody but Russell Wilson. I think that's incredible. So I think that them and the Hawks, if they play their cards right, they can dominate their respective conferences. So speaking of the finals, Western Conference, Eastern Conference, NBA Finals, who do you think is going to be there?
That is a great question. I want, again, as a Boston fan, I want to believe what Jason Tatum said after winning that skills challenge, which honestly I don't really care about, but good for him, I guess. He said we're gonna turn this around and we're gonna be in the finals or we're gonna win the finals, something along those lines. And I want to believe that. There's no excuse not to. They have the talent. They've got a top tier coach. They've got everything they need. The chemistry's not flowing. Little injuries here and there. So do I think they can do it? Yes. Do I think they will? That's to be seen, honestly, with the chemistry. I think the most obviously the Bucks are a team you almost can't not I know they got eliminated in the first round last year by the Celtics, who were depleted. No Irving, no Hayward. They went to 7 games though. It's not like the Sixers who got wiped in 5 games. The Bucks went to 7 and really played well, and they only got better. I mean, Brook Lopez is a very underrated free agency signing for them. And I just got Nikola Mirotic as well. I mean, you throw those guys next to Bledsoe, Brogdon, Giannis, of course. And I mean, they've got a bench too. It's not like they got rid of anybody to get these guys. Most of that was free agency or small trades. And I'm even forgetting, they got Middleton too, great shooter. I think the Bucks definitely have a chance to win it all. And then again, I hate to say it because you can't bet against them, but the Warriors, if Cousins keeps improving his his minutes restrictions going up, he's gonna play more minutes. Curry, Thompson, Durant, obviously can't say enough about them. And I think they know this might be their last year on top because Thompson's a free agent, Durant's a free agent. The only guy who's there for sure, and Cousins a free agent too. I mean, the only guy who's there for certain is Curry. And I think they're just they know this is their last ride probably, and I think they'll do whatever they can to go out on top, and nothing tells me that they can't do that.
Yeah. The only thing I gotta say is you forgot about Donkey.
Oh.
I mean, obviously I would love it. I think the Western Conference is actually going to come down to the Thunder and the Warriors. I mean, you can't really bet against them, especially with Iguodala coming off the bench. I think Livingston's still there because he's like 40. But they're hard to bet against. The Thunder are playing at such a high level that I don't think they're going to lose early on. And I think Kobe said it best when he said, James Harden's style of play in this it's not sustainable in the playoffs. So even though it's kind of hypocritical coming from Kobe, I think he was right. In the Eastern Conference, I mean, I think it's going to be the top 2 teams. I think it's going to be the Bucks and the Raptors. Acquiring Marc Gasol from the Grizzlies, that's a fantastic move. Replaces often injured Jonas Valanciunas. They lose a couple guys that didn't, they weren't making a huge difference. I think the difference Gasol's going to make in the long run, and especially with these playoff experience, him and Kawhi Leonard are going to, take this team to the height that they've never really seen before. Now we have we're going to go into the NBA draft. Who are your top 5 guys?
After this, and this is going to lead us into our next point, but after that game last night between UNC and Duke, that really changed my opinion on the top 5. I think Zion instantly proved to be the number 1 guy because of how bad Duke played without him. And I think RJ Barrett and Cam Reddish, I can't think of any names like off the top of my head who would surpass them, but at the same time, I don't know how you can have they had Zion at 1, I think
RJ
Barrett at 2, and then Morant and Reddish. That was like a top 4 prediction on ESPN, I believe. And I just don't think RJ Barrett and Reddish were non-existent that game. Trey Jones played pretty well, in a 16-point loss at home. But those 2 guys who are supposed to be top 4 picks in the NBA didn't perform, and they let their team get destroyed by UNC, who, it's not like they played a great game. UNC shot 2 of 16 from 3, 16 turnovers. Luke May and Cam Johnson is his name. Yeah, those 2 guys really carried them.
They scored 57 out of our.
Yeah, they really put the team on their back. They stepped up as leaders because they're older guys on that team. And I just think that game just really proved that I don't know if Reddish and Barrett can be trusted to be top 5 picks. I think Zion for sure, number 1. He's just the combination of skill and size. You can't deny it, even if you're a UNC fan and can't stand him. And then Ja Morant, I know he's playing for a smaller team, Murray State, but he's playing he's playing really well, and I think a lot of teams go. I think the best thing to do is go back and look at the draft that Damian Lillard was in. He came from Weber State, and I think he fell to 6, which I guess it's not really falling, but I'm sure there are some teams that wish they could get their picks back and take Damian Lillard. He's shown that he's loyal, he's very talented, and it doesn't matter where he went to college. He's performing, at a really high level in the NBA right now. So I think Morant's definitely up there. I think a guy that, and I know he's not going to go top 5, I just think he definitely deserves to be a first-round pick, is Chris Clemens out of Campbell. Yes. I've seen him play since high school, being a Middle Creek Mustang alumni. We played against Millbrook, and that's where Chris Clemens went to high school. I apologize. Lily is whining. Okay, she stopped. Back to my point. He dominated in high school. He's the number 1 scorer in college basketball right now, averaging 29 points a game.
He broke Tyler Hansborough's record for most points in North Carolina basketball
history.
Exactly.
I think just because he's going to a smaller school and just because he's stayed all 4 years, he doesn't deserve that shouldn't hurt his draft stock. And of course it does, because every team nowadays just wants, a 19-year-old sensation who's going to instantly be, the franchise guy for the next 10 years. But I think Clemens definitely deserves to be at least looked into the top 10 with the way he's been performing as well. But yeah, like I said, I just think the thing about the draft right now is, can you really trust RJ Barrett and Cam Reddish to be top 4 picks?
Yeah. Obviously, I think Zion's number 1. I'm really upset that he didn't go to Carolina, but it's whatever because he didn't do anything against us yesterday anyway. But I like your point that it's, Cam Reddish and RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett got dominated by Luke May, who's 6'9", and unathletic.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. And Luke May dropped 30 and 15 on him. Played good defense. So I don't really see RJ Barrett. Obviously, you're going to get bigger, stronger, whatever. but I just didn't see enough last night to justify him being like I guess he was like the number one guy coming out of high school. I didn't see enough of that. I definitely think Trey Jones should jump up, and it pains me to say it, but he played really good defense last night. I mean, he strapped up Kobe White, even though on his wide open looks he couldn't hit anything. But he was making him uncomfortable and forcing a lot of turnovers. Like you said, John Morant and Chris Clemens. I love those guys. Those small school guys really impressed me. Especially watching guys like Damian Lillard, Paul George. Paul George went to Fresno State. That's not a big basketball school. So these small town guys, I think they need to get some credit. And also a guy that I like from my Badgers, Ethan Happ.
Oof.
He's been there He's been there 3 years, but I think it's taken him some time, and he could have left, but his decision to stay there is developed his skill for basketball, and I think he'll probably fall to late third round or late first round. Jeez, football. But I think he'll fall late and be a contributor on a playoff team once he gets drafted. And then obviously, I think Luke May is a great player, but I don't think he's going to get drafted. The one thing I will say is Nazir Little, I read an article, said he wants to stay at Carolina, and I don't think he's going to leave, despite reports saying he's going to go number 7 of the Wizards. I don't think he's going to stay, or don't think he's going to go to the NBA. I really don't. But that kind of takes us to our last point. Go Heels, baby. Go Heels. All day long. Go Heels.
For this March Madness predictions. Dude, I hate predicting March Madness because I'm always like, oh, it's obvious that these teams are gonna be there, and then you got a team like Loyola Chicago making the Final Four, Elite Eight, whatever that was. I mean, I'm terrible at this. I feel like I'm a very knowledgeable person when it comes to sports, but when it comes to freaking brackets and bracketology and all that, I feel like every year I watch more and more college basketball, and I'm like, yeah, I think I got this year, and I do terrible. My girlfriend and my younger brother, who both don't care about college basketball, always seem to do better than me in my family bracket. So clearly, I don't know if you can trust what I'm saying here because I'm terrible with it, but I think, and I'm not just saying this based off last night, I just think UNC is one of those teams that they have a combination of youth and they have a combination of experienced guys. They got Luke May, Cam Johnson, and then obviously Kobe White, Nasir Little, those type of guys. I mean, they've got the best combination of youth, talent, and experience that propels a team to win, the national championship, win March Madness. Duke, again, it's unpredictable because we've seen teams that they've had. What team was it that?
Jabari Parker.
Was it Jabari Parker that lost in the first round or second round? I mean, they've had these teams that everyone's like they're definitely going to the Final Four at least, and then they lose to Lehigh. Shout out to C.J. McCollum. Or just teams like that where it's just, or Mercer. I'm pretty sure they lost to Mercer that one year too. And I mean, it's so hard to predict a team that's all freshmen minus Marquise Bolden and maybe a couple other guys. I mean, it's hard to bet on Duke to make it this year, even with a guy like Zion. I just think there's a lot of teams. I think no matter what, I don't know if I can predict a specific team, but I think it's going to come down to a ACC versus Big Ten matchup in the finals because those two conferences are just really playing at a high level. I mean, the SEC's got some decent teams too. They got Kentucky, they got Tennessee. They've got some good teams, but I just think the Big Ten and the ACC, they've got like 6 teams at least where you're like, they might be able to make it out of their region and make it to the Final Four. And that's where I stand right now with March Madness. Obviously, as the once we get an actual bracket coming up soon, it'll be easier to tell. But I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Obviously, I assume you're going to go with UNC to win it all, but I'm interested to see or hear what you have to say about the rest of the field.
I mean, I do like Carolina. I think it really does depend on if they shoot well. Obviously, with Zion going down last night, it did leave a void in the middle of the paint, and we exploited that. I mean, we put up 62 points in the paint. It was absurd how many points we put up in the paint. We also missed so many threes, and we're kind of a live by the three, die by the three team most of the time. So I think that'll be one thing that hinders us. Michigan is very underrated. Jordan Poole, I think that's his name. That dude is a bucket. I mean, I think he's going to take that team really far. I think Kentucky kind of proved that, there are a couple little mishaps, but they're the top team in the SEC, regardless of what Tennessee says. I kind of always like West Virginia. They're a scrappy defensive team. Bob Huggins makes me laugh whenever I watch him because he gets so red. He's like a tomato. But I think those are probably, and again, Duke's always in the conversation. Virginia's probably going to make it to the third round tops. So I think those are my three teams. I don't really think anybody from the Pac-12 is going to do much. UCLA is not as good. Oregon lost Bowl. So, I think it's definitely going to be East Coast matchup. Villanova's not as good this year, but, Jay Wright's a great coach. He's, going to put his team in a position to win. So I think those are probably my top four teams: Carolina, Michigan, Kentucky, and Villanova. I think those are probably my four picks. Obviously, I'm not picking Duke because I can't stand them. But I think that's all we got for now, man. It's been an hour.
Yep.
Got through a lot. We appreciate everybody who has watched this, tune in for a little bit. This is a journey. We're glad to be finally taking the first step. So we want to thank you all. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button on the video and the channel. Turn on notifications. Join the Attitude Era, man. It's what all of our fans are called. We're going to call them that Attitude Era. And, I had a good time. Hope you guys learned a lot. If you have any comments or questions, something you want us to discuss next week, leave it in the comments. We'll definitely get to it. But I think that's it for us. Sign off. Peace.
Peace.